Welcome back. Now it's time for the State of the Nation. And of course, remember, just like I promised you, we'll be talking about the impeachment motion of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. And of course, to help me unpack this discussion is one and only Eston Maina, a political scientist. Eston, asante sana for making time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so just to put you into context with what you're talking about, well, I have a very brief story. Mm-hmm. Story is about a man and a woman who, out of, convenient, they decided to, fall in love, and of course, went all the way to the altar and promised to be faithful, truthful, caring, to protect, defend each other for better for us. That is the marriage. And of course, barely 2 years after this marriage, the house began to rumble. There was cases of infidelity. That is, the wife was accused of infidelity, and the wife then accused the husband of not saying anything to protect the marriage that they so defend it dearly. And of course, they made a lot of promises on the altar. Now, the moment of reckoning is here, and the wife has been served with, fair to say, a divorce papers. So it's upon the wife to either sign or even the husband to reject the divorce paper. I'm talking about now, which is evidently the gloves are off between President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua. Impeachment motion was filed today officially in the parliament, marking the beginning of a process that, if indeed he will be impeached, then he will go down in the annals of history as at least the first deputy president to be impeached, the sitting one for that matter. Well, when you look at this impeachment motion, the grounds that have been at least set to be forming the basis of this impeachment. So what's your take? Do you think it stands, the waters, and of course it will see the light of the day, or this is just another political scheme to ouster the man from Murima?
First of all, in the Republic of Kenya, you're innocent until proven guilty. Mm-hmm. And that is why, in this regard, it is now in the place of the motion mover, who is now the Member of Parliament for Kimbwezi West, Honorable Mwengi Mutuse, to substantiate on the same. Mm-hmm. And he had 11 allegations that we are awaiting to see, the gravity of the situation. Are they just hearsays? Mm-hmm. He said he has video evidence, he has, audios and whatnot. And, when it comes to impeachment, it is a very turbulent situation. Because now, as a president, you're faced with two things, Do you now pick your individual interest or the national interest? In this regard, I want you to know that the deputy president of any state is a very influential, person in the state. And just like you saw, the attempt, in the United States, it can trigger some emotions. So, as a president, you must be willing to evaluate both. Is it worth it? Because for a motion of impeachment of a deputy president to be tabled in parliament, it has to be commissioned by the president, especially if it emanates from, the side of the government. And I think they were very smart at how they, they tabled the motion in parliament, because initially it was anticipated that it would be either, Junet Mohammed or George Kaluma, that is the MP for Homa Bay town. But now it turns out they picked Mwengi Mutuse to table it. And I think that is to ensure that, the biggest competitor, who is now, the official opposition leader in this case, Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, does not benefit from this impeachment, because now it will have emanated from a member of parliament from his region. And, that will antagonize, Mount Kenya. So, again, that was very smart on their side. But then we will wait for the substantiation, and that is what will tell us if it at all it holds any water, because you cannot impeach anybody on the basis of they're not respective, they're not respecting the president, you have to substantiate on the same. If there's gross violation of the constitution, you have to substantiate on the same. On that marriage and analogy, birds of a feather flock together. And when you as a presidential candidate, came to the electorate and said, I have picked Evans as my running mate, it means you had run a background check on Evans and you saw Evans as, the person who was fit, to fit those shoes. How then do you come back to the electorate and tell them, what, I was wrong about, about Evans? What does it speak, about your decision making? So it is a lose-lose situation for the president.
All right.
Yeah.
And when you look at the grounds under which Deputy President will be impeached, if, of course, it sails through the Parliament and, of course, goes to the Senate, and, of course, 2/3 of the senators pass it, then officially, probably, the Deputy President will be impeached. But we have gross violation of Article 10, 27, 73, 75, and 129. In regard to this Article 10 that talks about, tribalism, nepotism, do you think probably from what you have seen, maybe the talks from Deputy President about the politics of the region, the Mount Kenya region, clearly saying that all politics are region, do you think this ground, in all fairness, can really stand? Because there is talk that Deputy President is a national figure.
Yes.
When he speaks, or rather when he represents the entire Kenya. And this is about the national cohesion and all these things, about the unity, talking about as a president, as elected leader, deputy president in that matter. When you talk, you conduct yourself in a way that resemble the national unity as the national figure. So do you think probably talking about politics and, of course, development of certain region could be actually the real ground for this impeachment under Article 10 of the Constitution?
I will say that both the president and his deputy have failed to be statesmen. And this is why we have a president who is more of a politician, than a statesman.
All right.
Once you are sworn in as president, it is time, you shun the politics, run government, bring everyone on board, be a statesman. Because, it is a case of monkey see, monkey do. If you see your president, being more of a politician than a leader, then you tend to, you tend to take the same course. And that is why we have, we have a deputy president who, believes in this shareholding thing in government. At the same time, the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya does not make any appointments. It is the president who makes appointments. And when they say, the deputy president, that is, the person of the deputy president says that this is a shareholders government, and then the president proceeds to appoint, CSs on that same shareholding, analogy. So what does it say about the president? This is something, that is going in tandem. It is a discussion they have held together. It's only that it is coming out from the deputy president, because then he speaks, of let me say, the discrimination in government, where it's only, let me call them the shareholders, the supporters of this government that, that are reaping those, the benefits of government. But then it is the president who appoints.
All right.
So
is it,
you cannot separate the two.
All right. So is it fair to say, under this Article 10, both
the president and his deputy,
the president has failed?
Yes.
Is it fair to say?
It is fair to say that.
It's fair to say
that. It is fair to say that they have both failed this country. They have failed us as statesmen, because we expected them, whether we elected them or not, to be statesmen. When it comes to the presidency, you have to respect the presidency, because it not only speaks to the person, the president, or the person, the deputy president. It's an office. You're supposed to be a symbol of national unity, because as the president, you cannot say you're the president for everyone, yet we see only appointments from your region. Majority of the appointments in government. You cannot say that you're the deputy president, of the Republic of Kenya, and the only people you talk about is your region. So on both occasions, they have failed to be statesmen.
All right. Now, first of all, do you support the impeachment motion of Deputy President? Do you think maybe it's fair to send Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua home?
I personally do not support the impeachment for this particular reason. Impeachment is both a political and legal process. But I tend to think this one is more, of settling political scores, because the deputy president is not, timing or marching to the direction that the president wants maybe him to march. And when we have a situation where we use impeachments for reasons that are not supposed to, to trigger impeachments, because it's supposed to be, a legal process. That we have legal offenses that the deputy president has committed, as opposed to not singing the song or not reciting the poem that the president wants them to recite. And one of the allegations was that he banged the table when the president was there, and that showed disrespect. Now, I don't think that is a legal ground enough to impeach somebody as the deputy president. Something else that was said is that he's a bully. It was said in Parliament today that he's a bully, and I remember even Junet Mohammed asking for protection. They're asking for protection, from the IG of police, because they're saying he's a black man with a dark hat. I don't know where they garner that sort of information, but maybe, like we said, they will substantiate on the same.
All right.
But I do not support the impeachment, because it might put this country, in very trying times. I want you to remember, the things we went through in 2007, and I think President William Ruto and former President Uhuru Kenyatta, one of the biggest achievements they made was uniting, the Mount Kenya faction and the Rift Valley faction that had been antagonizing each other for ages. But then when you move a step forward and 2 steps back, you're taking away from your achievements.
All right.
Because what that will do is that it's going to bring a revolution that is going to pitch one side against the other.
Okay.
Yes.
And when you look at now the perceived split between Deputy President and, of course, Rigathi Gachagua, that is President William Ruto and his Deputy Rigathi Gachagua, well, none of them have come out clearly to say that, okay, the house is on fire, this is we are at this point because of 1, 2, 3. But from your own assessment as political analyst, where do you think probably the rain started beating once a very vibrant party, two of the most darling given promises, promising to protect each other, defend, one saying that my deputy will not, undergo what, I passed through as a deputy president. Now, the same script being played over and again. Where do you think probably the marriage went sour?
I think they set their own precedent they set their recipe for chaos, because we saw a government that came into power and started, violating a lot of, constitutional, let me say, a lot of institutions, let me say. For one, we have seen a government that has no respect, for the rule of law. We have seen intimidations from the side of the, to the side of the judiciary. We have seen, intimidations on the, on the citizenry. You're not supposed, to exercise your freedom, to picket and, air out your, express yourself, air out your grievances. Now, when you thrive on such a government, sometimes we say mchimba kisima in Kiswahili uingia mwenyewe. They set their own course for failure.
All right.
Because when the president, was okaying, the military to go into the streets of this country to fight our young men, the deputy president was behind him clapping, because as the chief assistant to the president, he did not see any problem, because at that time, it was a win for them. Now the same sword has turned to him, because the president reminded us, the sword that you gave me, siya kukata nyeni. That's what he said, siya kukata skuma. That is what he said. And the same sword now has been turned to his deputy, the same sword. And I hope Kenyans pay attention, because when the president was sworn in, he was given two things by the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya. He was given the Constitution and the sword. But for some reason, the president put the Constitution aside and lifted the sword. I wish he had lifted the Constitution and showed us as Kenyans that he was going to, uphold the Constitution and protect it. He was going to run this country under the Constitution, but he showed us the sword. Meaning he was going to run it, under his control, that power. He showed his power as the president. And this is the same power that is now tilting to his deputy, because you're not towing the line. And I told you this sword was not for Sukuma Wiki. Now that the sword has been turned to the deputy president. So it is a government that was formed, as a as a business entity. That is how I see this Kenya Kwanza government. It was formed as a business entity. And that is why you see most of these differences are purely individual, interest, not national interest.
Okay.
Yes.
Talking about interest, and this is, I think, largely where the discussion is based on, and even the impeachment motion squarely lies on this very key aspect. The activities of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua around now the Mount Kenya. Part of his, part of his time as a deputy president has been to try and mobilize the Mount Kenya people and bring them into one umbrella. Well, that has been a very tall order for him. And as things stands by, it seems that the mountain is really on rapture as we speak. And because of this, we have seen this is a man that has been walking very lonely walks in recently, and now that he faces an imminent impeachment, should this motion sail through and Senate find it fit that indeed he stand accused, then probably his activities around the mountain, defending the mountain and trying to listen to the ground could now be something that maybe either will be slowed down or will even intensify. Well, this deputy president and his Mount Kenya politics, do you think this is an area that he has really struggled on it? And do you think he has really the support of the people as he claimed?
I would say, I think one of the biggest mistakes, of this, the president has ever made was, trying to fight his deputy. Because now what happened, they ended up creating, a monster of their own making. Because when they came to power, and it is true how it is alleged that, Mount Kenya did not elect, William Ruto because of, Gachagua. They would have elected him regardless, because he had convinced them. Or rather, the pact that they had with the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, still stood when it came to the people. But now, in fighting his deputy, he made him popular. Because we have a culture in Kenya where we sympathize with, the underdog. Kenyans root for underdogs. The moment people see you're being oppressed, they are going to side with you. And now it is the same, the same water that cooked his chicken the time, he was the deputy president, the same sympathy he rose upon is the same sympathy that his deputy is enjoying. Because now, at that time, he was the oppressed, but now he is the oppressor. And now Mount Kenya is against the oppressor. Because now, to them, the same narrative that he sold, that the president was, oppressing him, the president was shutting him out of a government that they created together, is the same narrative that his deputy is peddling. We formed this government together. We were elected on a single ticket. Why is he locking me out of government? Why am I being, removed from a WhatsApp group that's supposed to inform me on, on the activities of the president, to a point where I do not know where the president is at what time, so I cannot appear in these meetings. So I think it is upon now the president, to ask himself. It is not now Gachagua. It is the president who should ask himself, where did the rain start beating us? Because he has only made him popular. And if at the very beginning, Rigathi Gachagua never stood any chance, to be the Mount Kenya kingpin, as they say, now he has a chance. Because I can tell you, Mount Kenya is not divided. It is the leadership in Mount Kenya that is divided. When you go to the ground, and that is why you have seen attempts, by the majority leader, MP for Kikuyu, trying, to talk ill of the deputy president. It turns out chaotic for them, because now the ground, the ground has become vibrant, and it's only singing Rigathi. And that is why you see, even when they did their tour in Mount Kenya, they had to involve the deputy president, because the people were chanting his name. You cannot separate Mount Kenya from Rigathi Gachagua at this moment. So even if the president is going to pick, let's say the impeachment goes through, if the president is going to pick somebody from Mount Kenya, it is very hard for him to find somebody who will fit the shoes of Rigathi Gachagua. It will be an uphill task for the president.
Well, but your statement about Rigathi Gachagua now being the man of the people, well, how comes when he was on Mount Kenya tour,
yes,
just on weekend, out of 7 senators from the region declined to actually, be part of that tour, and of course he was really isolated, a lonely man. What does it tell about, the deputy president? Because I believe appeal should cut across through leaders and the people. So what kind of message does it send?
This is the message it sends, a very simple message. Like I said, it is not the people who are divided. It is the leadership. And it is because we have a leadership that is, very much token-based. They go to the highest bidder. And that is why you see the parliament we have today is pretty much an extension of the executive arm of government. It is either the executive has overreached to a point, it is, overstepping the boundaries, and now it's controlling parliament, or parliament has been subdued. It's only it's under the mercy of the executive. And that is why you see in cases where a parliament passes, a finance act, and the president declines it, and they're just there clapping. The same MPs who maybe in the morning were saying, pass the bill, are now clapping because the president has declined the bill. So it begs a question, as an electorate. Do these people think for themselves, or does the president think for these people? So when senators from the region, fail to appear, it only shows that, most of the MPs and senators who were elected under the UDA ticket or the Kenya Kwanza ticket, they were elected simply because they were in UDA. And that is something you need to know. And the president reminded them. There's a time they went to State House and said, the ground has shifted. Mr. President, we need to adjust. And the president told them, you only need to be popular when it matters. You don't need to be popular all the time. I got you elected. You did not get me elected. Remember that. It is something he constantly reminds them. So they have to toe the line. Because at that time I told you, Rigathi brought nothing to UDA. We have to be honest. It was all, all under Ruto. So all these people pay their allegiance to the president, not to his deputy. If it was a case of, when we have a contractual agreement, because all the other parties, they have a contract with, with UDA, all the Kenya Kwanza parties. Ford Kenya has a contract with UDA. The Service Party has a contract with UDA, and the ANC has a contract with UDA. And Maendeleo Chapchap has a contract with UDA. Only Rigathi Gachagua joined the Kenya Kwanza movement with no contract. He went on a gentleman's agreement. So these MPs know that they are under the mercy of the party leader, not the deputy party leader. So that is why they had to toe the line with the party leader and not his deputy. Yep.
All right. And because now we are actually past time. Okay. So I'll give you just 30 seconds, pretty one, for your closing remark and regard to this.
I will say this. The president has to be very careful when conducting this impeachment process, because as a student of history, when you read a book called The Art of War, the best way, to handle such a situation, you give your enemy, the time to destroy themselves. Because now, the president has chosen to attack. And if the impeachment is to go through, because I believe when the president okayed it, he was certain that it would go through. Because if the impeachment motion fails, what does it say about the president? Because it is clear that the president has commissioned it. So he has one option. He has to make sure that he flattens his competition, because you must give your enemy nothing to negotiate, no hope and no room to maneuver, because failure to do so will mean the end of autocracy.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Eston, Maina, thank you so much for making time, for having this very important discussion about the state of the nation and, of course, the current affairs in regard to what is happening in the country, in our political spheres. Right now, the hot discussion is about the impeachment of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Remember, the motion has already been tabled in Parliament. Now, all eyes will be on the August House to see how things will pan out. Will Deputy President be the first to actually march out of very prestigious position, or will he survive the impeachment motion? What does the future await for Deputy President? That is a question that for now nobody can claim to have the answer. Only time will tell. All right.